Well, here we are today. Got all the sides put on the boat. I put that strap across the top just because there's not enough to try and hold this up against that little short bulkhead there. And you can see it's got a little bow, but when I put a shear clamp on it, it should straighten all that up. So got all the sides on the boat, and now we got got these pieces glued in, but I just did all this glue yesterday evening, so I'm gonna try and jump in here real quick and pull the fillets on at least these three, those two, and this one, and that ought to be able to, that's gonna close up this back end. And I'll only have the other three on that side. It'll close up everything from here back. I still haven't tackled the transom, although I got all the little gussets and all in there. All those are good and done, and cleaned them all up, sanded them, so I'm ready to look to glass on top of that. But I'm gonna try and pull the fillets right now and then come back later this evening and pull that glass. I've already got it all, got the glass and all cut here, and I've got the pieces for the other side. While I'm waiting on these fillets, if I've got some time, I'm gonna go ahead and fit that fiberglass, but I'll cut it to fit. But I've also come back in here and put some screws on the outside of the hole going into these transverse bulkheads. So just because that glue's a little, it's been in there, it's been on there since last night, but just in case it's not all the way sealed, it'll certainly hold it all up there. So that's what we got going on right now. About to start pulling these fillets. May show some of that. I'm pretty sure you've seen all that a few times already. Same thing. Use a little spatula in all the corners. This will be a little different. This little right here where that chine comes in, you can see that glue, like all this glue was the same batch, and some of it just got liquidy at the end. I don't know why, if it had started kicking, or it's all I can imagine happened. But you'll see me, I'm gonna pull well, if you don't see it, I'm gonna pull a real slow transition from here down to here so that fiberglass can make that curve and all nice and easy. So we got going, so we're about to get after. Alright, well, you've seen me do this a few times here. I've made some thickened epoxy. I'm going to show you a little more detail how I've been doing that, how it's kind of evolved. But right here, using a little spatula, talked a lot about just spreading it out. I'll come back with my little radius fillet tool. You can see it there in the bottom right. I'm going to grab it just like I did right there, and then I'll start pulling those corners, and then I'll take the excess and spread it around, and I'll come back with that little spatula and smooth everything out. It's been working out really well. Well, it's a pretty day in the boat shed today, in the tent. I'm just getting back after a trip out of town. Watched my daughter play soccer. She's on the soccer team at college, so just getting back. So this afternoon, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in here. The whole boat is where I put these little fillets in to glue it. These little glue spots, they're small fillets. All of these that didn't get their final fiberglass, like I'd pull the fillets in this one, and the one right over the top of there. So everyone, all these other little places where I had pulled fillets and glue that didn't, like this big fillet here coming around the transom, like any of those places like this, and even that all that little stuff like that, I guess where it just wasn't thick enough. But it's the same as this, but down there it just ran out. So I'm gonna get my little file sander, come through, and I'm gonna basically get back to where I can work on it every day without having to back up. I'm not gonna cut any of these zip ties off just yet, just because I'm not ready to pull those fillets. I may pull the fillets today. It's probably gonna be tomorrow. But I'm gonna try. All I'm gonna try and do this last bit of this video, which will probably be for this week, is I'm gonna try and come in here and get all of this stuff sanded up. Spend the next probably couple of hours, maybe, sanding all these little bitty pieces up. Getting all that ready, so whenever I do get ready to pull the fillets, even though there's no fiberglass going on this. Since this is cured epoxy and the fillet's going to be a bigger piece of cured epoxy, a 2-inch radius in here, I'm gonna sand everything. I'm gonna continue to, just like I've done down here in the bottom, like all of those. That one's been sanded. It's just you got some spillage from when I was fiberglass in that compartment. But everything that's slick, I'm gonna hit again with the sander. I'm running the vacuum. Probably get to the point where I put it up in the boat so that it reaches better, because we're going to use it a lot here. So finally got some decent weather. It's nice and cool. But the boat looks kind of much bigger. So getting, you know, hopefully we keep plugging away and get this thing in the water. You know, tough deal for Florida. Hurricane Ian. We know a little bit about hurricanes, but that's still a bad deal. So for all of y'all, like I think Kyle Paulus, maybe that's how you say it, lightning capital, something or another, who's building a 16, I think. Man, feel for all those people are affected. So all we're gonna do is probably put this on a time lapse and just go to sanding, because it's not a whole lot to watch there. So thanks for watching. So this is another situation where I did this intentionally. I say that sarcastically to show you, but this is just where that little file sander, if you get it a little too twisted, that little belt will pop off, but you just push it in, get it reset, and it's got like the perfect little radius to get in these corners. I'm gonna speed it up here just because, you know, the sanding is it's very important to do, but it's a big time killer because it takes a while and it makes a mess. And all I'm trying to do is, you know, show that, you know, any of this stuff that's cured, I'm taking the time to go back and sand it all out before I put any new epoxy on it. So that's what you see here, and I'm gonna run through it pretty quick, but I think there's a little bit of technique, because all we're trying to do here is just rough that glue spot or that little fillet up so that that next layer of epoxy will bond well to it, and it'll have something. It won't be as slick, so it'll bond real well. So I mean, that's all we're doing here. That's why we're taking the time to show it, but I'm running through it pretty fast. Alright, so what you see me do here is I go grab that little oscillating multi-tool. It's got that little fast woodcut bit on it, and all I'm doing here is I'm trimming off all that fiberglass that had hardened. And then all of a sudden my neighbor comes by, and I just want to show this because we sat here and talk, and I cut a lot of this out, but we sat here and talk about the boat and what he has done in the past. And he's such a neat old gentleman, and he, you know, does a lot of work in local churches and mission fields and stuff like that, helping build and preserve those facilities. He's such a neat man. I'm so glad I'm glad he's my neighbor. Alright, so we're about to be done with this. We're still just sanding and vacuuming all these little fillets and pieces. And all I'm trying to do here is that I kind of got a little got out over my skis, I'm sorry, where I thought I was going to be able to get more done before I had to leave town. And right here you just see that little oscillating orbital sander where those fillets, sometimes where you're scraping that along the sides, it's a little wide, so it's a little too wide to handle that little file sander. So I take that random orbital sander right there with some 80 grit, and I just sand all that up. That's what I'm showing here. As I'm wrapping up here, you'll see me grab this little piece of board. This is almost like a little pallet board I use sometimes when I'm dealing with thickened epoxy, and all I do is I take and I sand that off while I got the sander and vacuum running, so that next time I go to use it, it's smooth. All right, we got everything sanded down. Like I said, kind of ran through that pretty fast. It's pretty straightforward. All these little drips and all in here, just tapered that down nice and smooth so that glass can roll up it pretty nice without kinking or anything. So now on these compartments, these 3 compartments here, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the zip ties in here and pull all these fillets and get ready to glass it. First I gotta get that fiberglass from there, lay it in here, go ahead and mark it all out like we want it before we get epoxy in here. Seen that process before. It's kind of like, you know, lather, rinse, and repeat. It's the same thing that we did on that side over there. This will be the last 3 compartments, what I would call the main compartments, outside of the transom and the bow area, and then that's going to be a whole different little bit of a battle there, because I'm not quite sure how I'm going to break this up. You know, try and probably do this as a piece, maybe all of this at once, and I don't know, somehow try and figure out how to roll that up. If you got any ideas there, I'd be glad to listen. I'm gonna probably post, and then I got to get back on the road, got to go do some work and more soccer stuff. Then once we get done with those back there, all we have left of the bow is of this compartment, and then this little bit of stuff that's in here. This actually doesn't even call for glass, but I'm going to go ahead and pull off big fillets in there, and I'm going to probably run some glass in here just because I have the glass, and also why not do it from end to end. And then you got a cap piece that goes on right there, and then this is what I'm going to try and make an anchor locker. I'm going to get into some creative difficulties or challenges, figuring out how to put an anchor locker here. I'm going to have a big hatch here. Probably going to house, I may go with a single lithium 24 volt trolling motor battery in here for that. So I may have that here, and the wiring and all, charging, onboard chargers and all. So that'll be in this compartment, but also have this will be a pretty big compartment to have a hatch in here to have all the life jackets and everything like that in here. So kind of anxious. I'm gonna try and be ready, so whenever I fiberglass this, I just got the I'm actually going to go with Total Bilge. I think it's the name of it, the Total Boat product. I have to come in here and cut those, cut that off flush there. Yeah, those 2. But I got the Total Bilge so that when this epoxy's still wet from fiberglass, and I'm going to come right behind it and coat all of this, and probably go ahead and put that glass in here. Try and get where I can paint and coat all of it at the same time without having to sand it. So that's the plan going forward. I'm talking a little too much, but that's what's going on. That's what we're going to do. Like I said, I'm going to just try and pull these fillets right now, and either if they set up today, I'll start pulling the glass, and if not, I'll put the glass in them first thing in the morning. So that's the plan.
Alright, so here we go. We're cutting out all these zip ties where we had, stitched and glued this thing together. I'm just coming in here, running this a little bit faster than normal because, things take time. So you just basically go in there, and where you had all these zip ties, you can see all the little glue patches where the thickened epoxy was placed in there to help hold it together. And you can come through here and cut all these zip ties out, pull them out, get ready to pull the fillets, go in there and fiberglass it all, which that's the plan. What I'm doing here is these are these little cleats I've talked about. Just a piece of 3/4 by 3/4 wood, but I've got 90-degree screws, and they've helped me hold the chine, hold the transverse bulkhead and all that. Just help hold everything together while I was able to glue it all up. So now this is the same process as you've seen many times so far. I'm just using I've used those clamps to help hold it, and I've cut the fiberglass to the largest dimension, which on that forward compartment up here it's going to show that I have a bit of waste, but I'll reuse that somewhere. So I label it. I have all the compartments labeled. I'll put some reference points in there so that I know when I go back in here and saturate this with resin and sweat it out, I know where it goes to kind of orient it so that it makes it a little easier to roll out. This is where I kind of have a little bit of waste where it looks like, but like I said, I'll reuse this piece somewhere and somehow. It's not the best way, but it's just what happened. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it's probably a fault of mine, but it's an odd compartment. But what I do here is I mark the top of this transverse bulkhead, and then on the other end I mark where I've run a line on the hull side that shows where flush is. I'm gonna use this little scraper here. Keep talking about like all these little zip tie holes that you can see in here. You can see right there, there's a hard spot. By going over that, scraping all these little holes. You couldn't tell, but when I had that fiberglass in there, it grabbed it pretty bad. But that little bitty thing that was in there, it'll get up underneath that fiberglass and it'll make it little air bubbles. So all I'm doing here is I'm just continuing to use this little scraper almost as a telltale to show me where there are problem areas. All those little zip tie holes where you saw me pulling those zip ties, everywhere that we drill through the hull, there's a burr, there's a little protrusion, and I just take that little scraper and it flushes all that. It makes it flush and takes all that burr out of it so that it doesn't grab the fiberglass. And it's proven to be just so very handy, this little tool. This one, once again, it's from Harbor Freight. There may be 50 that are better than this one, but this is the one that I have, and it's worked very well for me with this wood, and I'm gonna keep using it the best I can.
all right, so now I'm gonna get up underneath here, kind of show you all these little washers. See if I can make this. You can see I came in here and put these little screws to help get this chine and the whole side to help get these two to lay flat. And I had to do a bunch of them up through there. I mean, I think you can see them. Right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back up underneath here. I'm gonna take all of these out because the little bitty screw heads are just barely sticking through, and I've got all this glued together, so I'll be able to take all these out. But now, once again, I'm gonna get up underneath here. I'll have to lay down on the ground, and let me see if I can walk and maybe show all of these up underneath here. And there may be some other ones. There may be some of my other little cleats up underneath here too. But show how that, hopefully you can see, I can't see what the camera sees, but you can see how that chine, let me get down here. And I did all that once again just to help this thing lay very, very flat. So it looks really good. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try and take this belt sander. I don't know if you can see, but it's a really hard. You know, you got basically 3/8 of an inch of this wood, and it's kind of got an angle because you got opposing angles here, so you got a little bit of a gap. So that fiberglass to come up in here, turn up, and then turn back down, you know, on an angle. So what I'm gonna try and do is take that sander and just soften this edge and like put a chamfer on it or something and just kind of soften it so that whenever I pull it won't take near as much thickened epoxy to get that to fill in here. So that's what I'm gonna try and do on these three, and we'll see if it works. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot better. Try and show it right here. See, I just came in and sanded that back. So now that transition, once I'll have to put a little bit of a fillet in here to kind of help flatten that out, but it's going to make it a whole lot easier for that glass to come up here, that cloth to come up here and turn it and hit this fillet. Because this, I mean, this angle here will be fixed with having that sloped fillet in there. Once again, here's my little fillet tool, so that's the angle that it has to turn. So by doing that, I'll be able to take, you know, this flat tool here, and I'll pull it down through here like this, and all this will be thickened epoxy, and it'll just make it go a whole lot better. So that's what we're gonna do. Now I'm gonna go make some thickened epoxy, and then we're gonna be back, start pulling out one more time, show it, I guess. Oh no, my little stir stick. My piece of plywood. I've been stirring every batch so far for this boat. I'm just a little bit weird once I start. My plan is to stir every batch of epoxy on this boat with this stick.
Okay, so outside of being just a little bit silly, what you're going to see here is how I take this resin and I'm taking this Cabasil right here, this fumed silica, and I'm mixing up basically 28 ounces of resin, somewhere in that neighborhood, 26 to 28, and I'm taking 52 to 60 ounces of cabosil, putting it in that 2.5 quart plastic jug here. And this is a little mixture that I've been using, and I'm showing this in real speed because just because somebody else may want to do this. It seems to work for me. I'm not saying it's the best, but it seems to work. I'm able to take this little mixture and I put this drill on low speed and spin it, and it's able to incorporate all the silica into that resin, and you can see it gets thick as the dickens right here. And you just keep working it, keep spinning it. And I've learned that as I work it and spin it, it incorporates. I'm able to scrape the sides of that jug there. And I run a lot of this at regular speed, not full speed, but regular speed, normal speed, so that you can see it maybe just a little bit quicker to say in the interest of time. But I spin it quite a bit, not to generate too much heat, because heat's your enemy here. But using that box right there, that box of rags, and that other little plastic thing of rags, I'm able to put that thing up in that corner and let it spin, and it helps that mixture to rotate that container, and it works out pretty good for me. I think because I've had some problems with stuff with this thickened epoxy running, I've actually added a little extra, and it's just I take a little tongue depressor here and help pin off that mixture. Alright, so this may be the first time I've ever pulled fillets in this boat. If this is the only video you've ever watched. If this is the first time you've seen me do this, well, there's a bunch of videos before this that you missed. But basically, I mean, you've seen it before. I'm going to run through this really quick. I've got this little spatula and helps me take this thickened epoxy you just saw me make. I'm pulling it in the corners first, the vertical corners, and then I start working on the sides and everything else. And as I use my little radius tool, which is just a plastic spreader that I ground a radius on to make sure it's the right one. It's 2-inch radius, which is what the plans call for. Here it is right here. And I just move any excess in front of me where I need it. And once again, I'm gonna run through this pretty quick. There's plenty of videos before now that show this in better detail, but this is pulling fillets, and there's just a lot of them, and every one of these compartments has a 2-inch fillet, and it probably has about 30 ounces of resin with cabosil or fumed silica to make that fillet. And especially these here where those chines are, you can see all those globs of epoxy. All that's got to be kind of leveled out to where that fiberglass can lay flat. So that's what we're doing here. It's pretty straightforward once you've done it a few times. When I was starting this build, it was very daunting, but now I feel like I got a pretty good hold on it. And you can see it here too. You'll see me come in here with my little spatula, and it's just real good to get in these corners, smooth everything out so that it's ready when I come back with fiberglass, and everything will lay flat. And once again, all those affected by the storm, Hurricane Ian, it's a very traumatic deal. I've been through disaster. My house flooded. I'll put a link right here. You'll see it in the upper right hand corner. You can see kind of what we dealt with. But man, if there's anything I can do, just let me know.